Hello, fictional. Welcome to the What If Issei. Today we are gonna see what if Issei is Son of Vinea. Part 1. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. War and bloodshed, they go hand in hand, like fish to water, moths to flame, life and death. Issei was the son of the last of the gunner magicians, one of the mercenary groups of old that disappeared during the Sengoku era and only appeared some few times, their descendants becoming less and less until the last Issei, Hyoudou, the gunslinger. He came into existence because of his mother, one of the few of the remaining group of low-class devil mercenaries, and a devil, one of the 72 thought to have disappeared or have gone extinct during the war. He was a Vine, or rather Vinea. "Issei, my son, come here, I must teach you this," said Issei's father Jiro. Issei came closer. No more than 4 years old, Jiro decided to teach his son his true origin, with permission from his mother Hyoudou, who gave Issei her last name, to help hide him from the supernatural world. "I am going to teach you about your true origins, and your mother is going to give you something that will help you in the future," Jiro said in a serious tone. "Your true origins on my side is demonic. You are as my son, the last heir of the Vinea clan, but until you are 15, you are to not reveal this to anyone, especially where we are going. We are leaving Papa. Yes, we are moving to Kuo, that is where we will live from now on, our new home." His mother came from around the corner and opened a box in front of Issei. "This was mine, it helped me live through war and pestilence, it has decided to choose you as its next wielder. You are the last of a special family bloodline that could use magic, but we decided to go into hiding and disappeared when Oda Nobunaga and the rest of Japan brought gunpowder and guns into warfare. Each gun is handed down from ancient times and was originally rare to have this piece, but thanks to someone in the past, no one knows who he was. The gun could be passed down through THR bloodline, as long as the gun viewed you as worthy of wielding it," Issei's mother said. The gun shined in the light, the grid on it shimmering and the beautiful color black with golden engravings and a green jewel on the bottom of the grip, which seemed to shimmer in the light. "Go ahead and touch it, it's meant to be yours." Issei listened to what his mother said and ran his hand down the barrel of the gun towards the trigger assembly and grabbing the grip and holding it. "It's heavy," said a young Issei. "Of course, that is the weight of taking a life, the will to carry and draw this will be ultimately up to you, but there is one rule," said Jiro. "No showing it or using it on normal humans. It is an ability which must remain secret unless you really do need it." The gun started glowing an orange color and flames radiating off of it. Issei felt the flames and they seemed cold to him. The gun wasn't burning him. Absorbed, Jiro casted a spell on him and permanently binded the gear to Issei, and the gun disappeared from his hand and Issei was confused. "Now it's yours, but be careful with your emotions, it will trigger whether or not it appears in your hand. One of these days, I will take you to the Underworld and our exalted house will finally return to our brethren's side. For now we head to Kuo, stand my son." He followed what his dad had said and they were all moved in an instant to their new home in Kuo, modest house, small as it was, but it was very neat and clean. "Go on, son, explore a little bit but be back home by sundown," said Jiro. This excited Issei and he went and explored the surrounding area, a playground and much more in the area. Then he found the one place he ended up loving, an overlook with a view of the entirety of Kuo, his home at the base of the hill in Kuo Academy, the all-girls school out on the distance. "Beautiful, isn't it, son?" Issei jumped when he heard his father's voice behind him and Jiro patted his head. "Let's go home, son, your mother is waiting." The next 3 years flew by and multiple training sessions with his parents with school on the side as well. His skills grew and branched and weaved into a perfect unison, allowing him to make bullets that were of normal human design. He even came up with holy bullets, something he could use to kill rogue demons. He also made demonic rounds to fight fallen and regular angels as well. But those bullets had a diminished effect on hostiles above his ranking as a devil in terms of power. For example, he would have an extremely hard time killing Surzeches if he tried it, and on the inverse, the same amount of trouble against a high-ranking angel like Archangel Michael. This made him almost untouchable almost. "Alright, son, show me what you have got," said Jiro and Issei obliged, reloading holy bullets and advanced while firing, but Jiro instantly countered it as if he saw the bullets' path on their way to make impact and got behind Issei and shoved him. "That's one hit, remember you have to get clever with your attack, son. When it comes to firearms their paths are linear unless an outside force affects them," said Jiro. Issei remained quiet and attempted to use the geography to his advantage and ran into the forest. Jiro lost him and smiled. He knew that his son was suppressing his aura like he taught him to and slowly moved through the forest looking for him. But Issei struck first and he intentionally missed and fired 2 more rounds, and one missed, while the other grazed him to avoid causing his father too much damage and left a cut on his father's leg, making him kneel, and Issei decided that then was the time to strike and came up behind his father with his gun and said checkmate. And that ended it. His father got up limping a little bit but was proud of what his son was capable of and went back home. Issei dispelled his gun before he had went, but it still seemed quite heavy despite his increase of strength with age. "Hey papa, what was that move you used?" asked Issei. "Which one?" asked Jiro in response to Issei's question. It's like you could tell the path of the bullet heading for your leg, and then earlier you completely dodged the bullets I sent at you. Said Issei, so you noticed. Jiro came in closer to Issei and kneeled in front of him and said. It's a special power that only you and I, since we are blood, can use. Our minds can predict enemy attacks, however, as you can see, like what you did in the forest, it still has a weakness. We can predict attacks, but we can't avoid them all if swarmed. With time it will come to you as it did for me. Said his father. Jiro walked in and Issei's mother healed the injured leg and noticed something. Her sigil was different from his own and his father's, but he didn't ask about it. Go have fun at the playground or something, son. I will be along soon to watch you, but I trust you will go straight there and nowhere else, yes? Asked Jiro, and Issei nodded and headed out the front door, and on the way to the playground, he heard something singing, sweet singing like his mother's when he was a baby, and he followed it, leading him straight to a church and into the lonely girl was singing. He moved silently, knowing that he wasn't supposed to go anywhere near the old church, but he went there anyway. I hear you, who goes there? Her singing stopped and she seemed to have noticed Issei enter the church, and he figured it was pointless to hide. I am Issei Hyoudou. I noticed your singing, and your voice is really pretty. I am sorry if I interrupted. He couldn't see her face, but she was still looking at him. Thank you, the girl stuttered, and she came out of the dark, and her hair was dark, and her dress was the same color, and her eyes were a mix of brown and yellow. Why do you sing such a saddened tone though? Issei asked, and the girl turned back around, and when Issei got closer, he noticed she had a pair of cat-like ears on her hair. Are those real? Issei asked, and she turned around again and she approached him this time, but he saw even more. She was slightly more mature than he was telling by her height and the size of her bust, and she looked at him directly. You're devil spawn, but you're not trying to kill me. What is your name, your true name? He compassed himself, but everything in his head was screaming at him to run, but he knew that he probably wouldn't be able to outrun her, and so he answered her. I am Issei Hyoudou, but my true last name is Vinea. She stopped and was stunned hearing that name, and she seemed to have spaced out. Your family name, you're part of the missing part of the 72 pillars, she said, her hair covering her eyes, and then they heard footsteps. Son, are you in H? Jiro started, but paused after seeing the cat-like person in front of Issei, and she looked at him. Is that your father, Issei? Asked the catwoman. Yes. He's really strong, however I have heard about the Underworld and how the devils reside there, but I never asked him. Why do we not go back? Asked Issei. It's something I was hoping not to put on you as a responsibility, son, not yet. I intend to get us back myself. But that is not important. Who is this? Asked Jiro, and the catwoman answered before he could speak. I am Kuroka Nekomata. I am a stray, but hear me out. I didn't attack my master for no reason. Said the now self-introduced Kuroka. Son, get behind me. Jiro said in a low tone. Issei had only seen his father like that once before when he was 5, when a stray had been in the neighborhood and he and Issei had came across it while walking back home that night. The building was leaking blood and in the rain it flowed in the gutters. Father, wait, let's hear her story first. If she wanted to kill me, I feel she would have done it already. Issei said, getting in between the Nekomata and his father. Kuroka was surprised by how Issei would stand in between his father, the one who could kill her, and have his back to her, trusting her not to stab him in the back. Would you listen? Asked Kuroka, and Issei's father looked like he just wanted to get it over with, but in the end he ultimately accepted. She explained her story, and then Issei's father changed his mind. Sorry about earlier. Said an apologetic Jiro, and Kuroka seemed to put the earlier complication aside. Do you have a place to stay until your plan can be panned out? Asked Jiro. No, I have been staying here. Said Kuroka, and Jiro smiled, seeing his chance. Then how about this, we take the short route instead of the long one. Once my son and I return to the Underworld, we will likely receive our evil pieces, become one of my son's peerage, be his shield while he is the sword. Offered Jiro, and Kuroka had to think about it. Her past haunted her because of what her past master was doing to her, but she was watching over someone younger, someone pure of heart, and one that would likely not do what her past master had done. I accept, but I have one condition, said Kuroka. Clear my name and help me find my sister, and I will be yours permanently. Deal. Said Jiro. Over the next 5 years, Kuroka helped take care of Issei with his mother, and Issei started to mature to a point, respecting his future peerage member, and the two trained together, and their relationship deepened until it came to a head. I am going to go to Kuo Academy when it becomes a co-ed school. Said Issei, and he was doing pull-ups, and his well-developed body was on show for the world to see in the backyard, and Kuroka seemed to be charmed by the sight of Issei's body, but didn't let herself get intoxicated by the sight. Once I go, since my father had done some investigating, I will look into if your sister is in the local peerage, said Issei, and he let go after finishing his third set, and he put a shirt on and went back inside. Just remember to hide those echolocators of yours when we have people over. It will be a serious issue if we have to wipe someone's memory. I believe Cadis is coming over and she has no attachments to the supernatural. Speaking about that, could you check on Dad? I need to know what my first move will be after I find out if there is indeed a devil contact there. I will have a look Issei-sama," said Kuroka. The way she said it was kind of a turn on, but he had to suppress what he felt until the plan was completed. He walked to the main living room and sat on the couch, and not a moment too soon the doorbell rang, and he got up, and he opened it. Caddis and her father were standing on the porch. "Issei Hyoudou?" asked Caddis's father, and Issei nodded. "Yes, is your father home?" asked Caddis's father, and Issei nodded yes, and he went to go get Jiro, and in a moment's notice Jiro was at the door and invited Caddis and her father in, and Caddis and Issei played together until the meeting between Jiro and Caddis's father had ended. They saw them off and went back inside. They spoke all through elementary school in Jr. High and were friends, but knew of Issei's emerging pervertedness. They will meet again in Kuo Academy as friends, but then more. Issei, just as predicted by his father, knew the Kuo Academy would become a co-ed school, and he applied and was accepted as part of the newly introduced male section of the school body, and he, just like one other in the school, was chiseled to perfection, his hair a dirty blonde color, a perfect mix of black, brown and blonde, and his body quite muscular, but he decided to not expose his perverted side when at school, but saved it for at home or elsewhere when it was appropriate. The same Issei who Caddis knew, now at 16 years of age, a second year at best, was a step higher than Caddis. He walked past Caddis without saying anything, but she looked at him from behind, noticing him suppressing his perversion, not looking at other girls, and shedding his friendship with Mitsuda and Motohama. The perverted triumvirate was shattered, and it was now just those two. After the first day being 2 lockers over from Kiba, the other pretty boy and prince of the school, he had gotten 9 letters, likely from girls, a razor blade, which likely came from a guy that was jealous, and a strange note from the orc. That day he started on his way home, and he was stopped by a girl named Yuma Mono, and Issei could tell what she was. "Would you be your boyfriend?" she asked. "Stop trying to trick me, Fallen, as fun as that would be, I can see through you," said Issei, who then predicted her next moves and countered before the light spear could hit him, and he had her in a perfect armbar, and the fallen angel was in pain, having already changed back to her true form. "Come on, you are better than that, Fallen, considering what you seem to be capable of. Would you like to join the future peerage of Vinea?" asked Issei. He had moved her to a location where they wouldn't be interrupted, and he let her go while she held her right shoulder, which came close to being dislocated. "What? Why would I turn my back on the Fallen and join you?" asked the fallen angel, "because obviously you are not doing this on the behalf of Azazel. If you were, I imagine he would have sent someone to capture me or make a deal, rather than trick me and use my heart." "What is your name?" asked Issei. "Rainier," she said while wincing from the pain. "Tell me, Rainier, why think of something so linear as killing me? Wouldn't I be of more value if Azazel had a connection to an up-and-coming devil noble, especially because of my sacred gear?" Issei asked. He approached her and she put her guard up, but he put his hands up and continues his approach slowly and uses the healing magic he learned from his mother. She felt warm and the pain faded quickly. "Well?" asked Issei, and in response she grabbed him and put herself on his lap and put her head next to his and said, "I yield to you, but I won't join." "Do you really think your gear will get Azazel's attention?" "Yes, you want his attention, not mine, then I will assist, but you must cease attacking those with sacred gears. Is there anyone else?" asked Issei, and she nodded and told him of the 4 others she detected sacred gears within. The day before he had detected 2 main devil signatures, one from the student council room and another while crossing the main courtyard. He had detected a similar signature from the student council president, so that crossed who she is off the list, but now who she is, friend or foe, and he had to persuade a fallen angel, which he succeeded in. But what came next? "Issei. Issei. Hey, are you ignoring me?" asked Caddis. "I am not ignoring you, I am just on the move. It seems the orc would like to see me. Don't you have kendo today?" asked Issei, and she nodded but got in front of him. "I do, but I have a confession to make," said Caddis. She walked closer and put her hand on his chest, and she noticed how warm he was. "Issei, I know what you are doing. You are holding your perversion back. Is it because?" Caddis trailed off. "It's because I need to start acting like an adult, like the head of my house. If I keep myself down, then I will be damn it, please don't tell anyone what I said. It's a secret, so please don't expose me," said Issei. "I won't, but you will have to explain that," Caddis said, and Issei looked down and saw his sacred gear. It was exposed, and he covered it up quickly. He grabbed her and used a teleportation circle. They ended up at his house, and Jiro opened the door and shook his head while face palming. "You just had to go and do it," said Jiro. "Well, she saw my sacred gear, so what was I supposed to do?" said Issei. "Wipe her memory of the interaction and move on." "Oh wait, I haven't taught you that yet," said Jiro. "Mr. Hyoudou," said Caddis. "I will explain it to her. You have things to do, correct?" said Jiro, and Issei nodded and began opening the letters and read the note from the orc. He will be excused from class during the day and come to the club escorted by no one better than Kiba, but he noticed something else. She gave him a summoning circle with a note, and it confirmed his suspicion. The second one is Gremory. The heiress of Gremory, Rias. But it still left one other question mark. Who was the other one? He left it for another time and went into the living room where Jiro was explaining the supernatural world to Caddis. He won't do that unless. No, she called Issei thought to himself, but then he looked again. She indeed had a sacred gear, but it was not activated, nor was it awakened. I would normally wipe your mind of this interaction, but I have something else in mind, considering your relation with my son and the dormant power inside you. Said Jiro. You have a sacred gear inside you? Said Issei. What? Asked Caddis, and she seemed scared and panicked, her mind moving 1,000 miles a second with what was said. Issei moved in, taking advantage, and kissed her on the lips. She reciprocated the kiss, tongues twisting and fighting for control, and Issei eventually won and stooped the kiss. I think I am going to excuse myself, you have a lot to tell her. Said Jiro, and Issei and Caddis were panting over the kiss. So you did like me that way, said Issei. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't know how to tell you. Caddis started with tears going down her face while blushing, and Issei used a napkin and wiped away her tears. Well, since you know everything now. I have a set choices for you. You can have your mind wiped and you will forget everything up to that kiss and this following conversation, or become part of my future peerage. I have to return to the underworld first, but once we have returned and I have gotten my evil pieces, will you join me? Asked Issei. I will join you. And she jumped on him, continuing the kiss, and Issei did not disappoint and also reciprocated the kiss. It turned into Issei moving her back to his room and turned into sex. Incoming lemon. Issei set her down on his bed and she starts undressing, first the shirt and then her undershirt. Issei doing the same, and he saw her bra and smirked. Purple suits you, Caddis. Said Issei, and she undid her skirt while he undid his pants, and having a look at it all, she was wearing lingerie, the bra included. Were you hoping it would go down like this? Asked Issei, and she nodded. You're naughtier than I am, I like that. Said Issei, and he started at her breasts while she managed and started working on Issei's manhood, smiling at him while he sucked on her breast, and eventually he came, and she tried to immediately go for penetration, but Issei turned it around and got to work on her lower entrance and just as easily made her climax as well, and then went for penetration. I will let you choose Caddis face to face or Issei started, and she interrupted saying. Do me while I face you, I want to. Issei interrupted her and penetrated her while she lay with her back on the bed and started to move, at first slowly, to get her comfortable with the movement, and then a little faster but remaining gentle to not hurt her if he could help it. Issei, I'm going to. Caddis started, and Issei said. I know, me too, I'm coming. And he climaxed inside her while she also climaxed, and he removed himself from her and lied down next to her. You're lucky that today was a safe day. Caddis said, and Issei retorted saying. Well, we demons don't have a high repopulation rate, so I don't think you will have to worry about it. Good, cause I want another round. Issei liked her before, but he liked her even more because of how rugged she was. End of lemon. Issei woke up the next day and he expected to be alone, but when he woke up he noticed something, a tail, no, two tails that were dark as night, and he threw off the covers to see Kuroka was sleeping on him, who woke up at the sudden movement from Issei. I heard you made a move on that girl from when you were younger, did she accept? Asked Kuroka, and Issei nodded with a smile on his face, and he got out of bed to get his clothes on to go to school. When he left the house it was different this time. Caddis was waiting for him at his front gate. You didn't have to wait for me, said Issei. Our houses are in two different directions from the school. I waited for you because I want to walk to school with you. I feel like we need to talk more about last night. Said Caddis, and Issei said, I actually was wondering as well. He stops walking. Should you be considered my girlfriend? Or is this a special relationship? Issei asked, and Caddis came in front of him and kissed him on the lips, standing on the tips of her toes because of how tall he was in comparison to her, and when she was done grabbed his arm and hugged it to her chest. I would like to be your girlfriend if you're fine with that. Said Caddis. More than fine with it. Said Issei, grabbing her chin and swooping down in a kiss with Caddis. He would get all sorts of rumors around him at school because of it from Mitsuda and Motohama, who witnessed the two of them kissing. Ugh, I don't need any more rumors being spread about me. Said an overwhelmed Issei, who was walking towards the orc, and as he approached he noticed the girl with red hair sitting in the window. That must be the Gremory heiress, he thought to himself, but he didn't pay her any attention and continued to advance up the steps. He reached the main room following Kiba and went into the clubroom. I have brought him as you requested. Said Kiba, and Riaz looked over and smiled. Issei, Hyoudou, I have brought you today for a special reason. She said, and she also said the exact same thing he said to Caddis, explaining the underworld and what she is. Issei faked being surprised, and it seemed to work. At the end of the day he rejected becoming one of her peerage members, but when Issei left he continued listening in. She sent the cat to watch him and track him back to his house. He quickly made a call to Rainier, and she agreed with the plan, as it also coincided with her objectives as well. I am going to make a fake version of me. I have programmed it to fall for your advances, follow your original plan and kill it where we first met. Said Issei, and Rainier agreed and did as she was told, and Issei disappeared back to his house using a teleportation circle. The news came back as quickly as he thought. She is definitely punctual, and news was spread quite quickly the next day that he had died the day before, and it proved what he thought. He went to Cadis's house and she was crying. He could tell as he got closer and he knocked, and the door was answered quickly by Cadis, and she was at first angry, but then let it go and hugged Issei. I enacted a plan that I thought would work. She fell for it indeed Cadis, now come with me to school early, we are going to talk to the Gremory about what she did. While on the walk approaching the school, Kuroka and Rainier joined up with him, and he nodded no to Cadis and told her he would explain it later. They all walked to the school and it was still early, but he could feel it, they were indeed gathered in that old schoolhouse, and Issei, suppressing his power, approached silently and entered the schoolhouse and the clubroom. Gremory, I am disappointed in your methods, said Issei as he opened the door. What? But I saw you die. And I saw you kill him. And what is an S-class criminal doing here? Said Riaz. Looking around, the other Nekomata was calm, and he put 2 and 2 together and figured it out. Black and white, yin and yang, he easily found Kuroka's sister, but it seemed that Kuroka was keeping herself composed, and Issei retorted, holding his hand out to tell his friends to not intervene. I was testing you, I intended for my house to return to the side of the devils, and you failed, perhaps the other one will figure it out before you do and earn the glory. An alliance with the warrior house of the Dark Horse would have been an advantage for you. Kuroka is here of her own volition and is one of my allies, however your rook needs to cool her emotions towards her sister. Hatred is like a time bomb, and this is goodbye, for now. And Issei left with his allies in tow, and he also knew that the student council would be in since they have morning duties, but this time he let his aura flare out, and it indeed caught the other heiress's attention, since he noticed she was now watching him. Cadis, you can stay. Kuroka, go home and notify my father of the Gremory heiress's failure. Rainier, you can stay or go, but I recommend you leave, since the student council president isn't as relaxed on the trigger as Ria's Gremory is. Issei said, and both of them understood and left. He went to the student council president room and he knew she was waiting for him. Come in, I know you are out there, said Sona, and Issei did as he was told, knowing better than to piss off the Citri heiress. Do you know who I am? Asked Issei, and he smiled. The Dark Horse, I have only heard the stories. Are you the last of your clan? Asked Sona, and Issei nodded. I have tested the 2 of you, your ally and friend. The Gremory has failed my test. As soon as she saw my clone get killed, she assumed I was dead and even sent out news saying I had died. You only worked on your current set of information you were given and furthermore stayed out of the mess that the Gremory made. Said Issei. Yes, though she is somewhat experienced, the methods she used should be embarrassing to her family name. Will you expose her? Sona asked. No, it was a test, and to the victor, he slid her a sigil piece and she caught it. Go the spoils of war. And she saw it as an approval from Issei to be the one to bring him and his family's name back to existence. Issei was at school normally as usual today, and at the beginning he was swarmed by a bunch of fellow students, asking about what happened and why he wasn't dead. He answered and gave them a single answer: there was no proof and he wasn't anywhere near there at that time of day, and that he was out with his girlfriend Cadis. The second part caught everyone's attention, and everyone questioned it, and at the same time Cadis had came out and grabbed Issei's hand, and it had proved what he had just said. Riaz, what did you do? Sona asked Riaz, and she answered, I tried to get him to join my peerage. I figured he would join, and also if he died I could revive him and use him and his sacred gear to earn my freedom from Riser. Her head was in her hands and showed obvious regret. He is of the warrior caste in terms of his family name. He would have worked, but the methods were a little over the top, said Sona, and Riaz didn't know what to say. I will return him and his father to the underworld. He has claimed 4 people plus 2 other outsiders. Don't go for them. We leave tonight, said Sona, and she left. Yeah, I'm fine, no need to get so touchy. Student council president Satori, said Issei, and he broke free and went to her side. What time did you want to do the meet-up for my study session? Asked Issei, and Sona caught on to his meaning and responded, meet up at your house and get prepared immediately. We will be starting immediately after you get home, said Sona, and Issei accepted and went back to class. The rest of the day was as expected, but he knew he was still being watched and went home, Cadis following him inside. Not a moment too soon, Jiro and Issei's mother had prepped to go, and Sona and her peerage and Riaz without hers came by a teleportation circle. Are you ready? Asked Sona, and Issei nodded. Yes, Cadis. Go home and wait for me there. As soon as it's done I will come to you first, he said to her, and kissed her and then separated and led her to the door, and she left. Let's go, said Jiro, and they were moved in an instant to the underworld. Underworld. Ah, it's been a while since I have smelled that sweet underworld air, said Jiro. Mother, I'm home, said Issei's mother, and Issei was surprised by how the underworld looked. The sky was a different color, quite disorienting for someone who was raised on the surface. Where do we go? Asked Issei, and Sona guided him the direction he was supposed to go by hand. Then as his eyes adjusted he needed help less and less as they got to their destination. Sir Zetches, you have a visitor, said Grafia, and Sona, her peerage, Riaz and Issei and his father entered. What's this about? asked Sir Zetches and Issei. Jiro and Issei's mother stepped forward and knelt before the current Lucifer King Zetches. It is I, Jiro Vinea. My family branch was believed to have been killed during the war. I am now returning to your service, my lord. Jiro said, and Issei was a little nervous. He had felt power before, but Sir Zetches' Lucifer was on a totally different level. Jiro, why did you go missing? Asked Zetches, and Jiro answered. I was disoriented and my magic was sealed away when fighting another devil. They threw me into the dimensional gap and I only escaped because of my wife's help. She is a lower class demon, but she is a pureblood like I am. If I may be so bold, would you accept me back into your service? I do, I need my warriors back. I also need a good instructor for the new bloods. I accept you not as a guard, but as a training officer. Said Sir Zetches, thank you my lord, but also my son I have raised and trained him, and he will not make the same mistakes I made. He is an honorable and masterful warrior, and I will settle for being on my own, but would you grant my son evil pieces? Asked Jiro, and Zetches laughed since he had not been spoke to in such a way for a long time, and he accepted, and they all got up from their bound position. So the Vinea family returns, this is good news. Said Sir Zetches Lucifer, and he and Jiro hugged like they were buddies. But it still seems like you've got to stick up your arse, Jiro. Well, old habits die hard. But still I imagine some of my old students are still alive and kicking. Said Jiro, and Sir Zetches smiled and snapped his fingers, and 30 guardsmen came in. Commander Vinea. Said one of the knights, and he broke formation and removed his helm, revealing a bald man with a mustache, looking like one you would see on a police officer during the 80s and 90s at Smack. Do you remember me, Commander? And Jiro took a second and then remembered. Issei paid it no attention as Sir Zetches walked in front of him and put his hands on his shoulders. Issei's gun was at his side since he was carrying it, and Zetches noticed the weapon. Peculiar sacred gear you have there, I thought only humans could manifest one. Said Zetches, I didn't manifest it, it was connected to me by blood, the bloodline that flows through my mother, and I allows me to use this gun. It is a good gun, but I know that what is within has not awakened yet, besides it claiming me as its new partner. Said Issei, and Sir Zetches motioned for him to follow, and Grafia also followed in tow. Issei's mother just found somewhere to sit and was happy, knowing that she had made it home. Jiro was with his fellow knights, and he was training them, but with Issei, he had been dragged off to a separate room. The closet contained multiple sets of clothes, and a set of armor was on a stand behind him. But then he detected something, the chestplate, it's not normal, and he touched it, and the entire set was changed. The chestplate was a poncho, and it had a design with dark horses all over it. The helmet and lower body armor sections had disappeared and became part of the poncho. It was definitely not normal, and he put it on. He could sense something, a horse. As corny as it was, there was a horse he could summon at a moment's notice. Cool, isn't it? Asked Sir Zetches, and Issei didn't know what to say. Issei looked around, and he saw something else, a chessette. Good, you have seen it. Your father entrusted you with his evil pieces. However, those are quite old. Are you sure you want those? I could replace them. Said Sir Zetches. I will keep the set. Said Issei. He had noticed something in the pieces, they were all mutation class evil pieces. An extremely rare thing was to have a full set of mutated evil pieces. It was practically impossible, but that was the case. I have something to do, Sir Zetches, would you excuse me? Asked Issei, and Sir Zetches let him do what he needed to do and sent himself back to the real world, and he first went to Cadis's house like he had promised, with his new duds on nonetheless. He knocked and Cadis's mother opened the door and invited him inside, and Issei asked about Cadis, and she had made it home safely, and he went up to her room, and she was at her desk listening to music and doing school work. He snuck in behind her quietly and put his hands on her shoulders. I'm back, moment of truth, the promise I made, are you sure you want it? Asked Issei, and she answered saying, yes. And Issei kissed her and then asked her to lay on the bed and relax herself, and he removed a piece from the box on his waist. And knight Cadis, will you be my knight? Asked Issei. Yes. She answered. When he got the answer, he read the instructions Sir Zetches had given him, and he followed them to the letter, and her body absorbed the piece as it went into her body, and she fell asleep, and Issei left after covering her up with a blanket at the foot of her bed. Issei left and thanked Cadis's family for their hospitality, and when he left they checked on Cadis, and she was sleeping with a smile on her face. They knew he was making her happy. Issei went back to his house and met up with Kuroka. What was your piece in your old master's peerage? I don't remember, it's been a while since I thought about it, and he only ever used me for experiments. No rating games, no award ceremonies, nothing. Said Kuroka. Then how about making you a bishop or queen? You are extremely powerful, and it is a mix of martial arts and magic as well as specialized arts, so a queen should do it. Said Issei, and he grabbed the piece from its special slot and set it on the table. Kuroka understood and undid her dress and lied with her back to the floor. He put the piece where it needed to be and recited the same incantation. It worked as well, and she also passed out, and when Issei felt her head, it felt feverish, very hot, and so he carried her in a princess bridal carry and put her in his bed gently. He was finished and decided to head back to the Underworld. He was stopped by Rainier. "There Rainier, is there something wrong?" Issei said, and Rainier dragged him back inside the house. "If I changed my mind, would you still accept me?" she asked, and Issei was caught off guard by this and wondered what happened. What brought this about? He asked. Azazel is doing research on the sacred gears you asked me not to kill the users for. He isn't acknowledging the work I am putting in for him. I even found the Red Dragon Emperor and his partner, and he still hasn't said anything. She said, "Are you absolutely sure about what you are asking? Once you fall that far, there is no going back, understood?" Asked Issei, and she nodded. "I have a suggestion then, stay here for the night and think it over. Kuroka and Caddis are out cold because of their massive surges in power they are unlocking, so you won't be bothered by anyone except my parents when they come home," said Issei, and she nodded, and he let her in and he left for the Underworld. He returned to the Underworld, and when he returned he found an interesting sight. A blonde-haired man who was what looked like annoying the hell out of Riaz. Things were quite tense, and the peerage of Riaz was very tense and was prepared to strike at the man, but didn't dare move an inch. "Was that Sona?" asked Issei Riser Phoenix. "He's set to marry Riaz Gremory. The full story was that she was trying to get you on her side to take down that despicable man and keep him from using her like she was a toy," said Sonia. "As much of a self-proclaimed ladies' man that I can be, I think acting as disgustingly as he is right now is something that should be looked down on," said Issei. "Young Lord Vinea, you have returned," said a knight, and Issei noticed he was wearing a banner with his father's sigil on it. "Yes, and I was going to see my father. Do you know where he is?" Issei asked. "The courtyard," the knight answered, and he led them there, and lo and behold, he was personally fighting off 5 knights trying to attack him all at once, and he was fending them off easily with a spear made of darkness. "Damn, hess good," said Sonia. "Even before he was here he fought like it was easy every time we fought. But there is a reason for it. Have you read all the stories of our past?" asked Issei. "I know you and your father can predict the future, so wait, no way it's that powerful of an ability," said Sonia. "Yes, it is. Me and him have a little name for it, the Eyes of Tharsis. Seeing incoming projectiles, weapons and powers. Speaking about that. Hey Dad, let me have a stab at it as well," said Issei, and Jiro smiled and waved him forward, and he jumped out of the way, and Issei came in and punched one of them, and all of them attacked him, and the incoming thrusts of the dummy spear were dodged easily and quickly, but he then grabbed the spear and broke it. The practice sword was swung at him, and he threw the head of the dummy spear, and it hit Thr knight in the head, knocking the knight out. The other knight threw a practice dagger at him, and Issei whisked both knives away with a flick of the poncho he was wearing, and he now noticed that his was lighter than normal rain gear, and it felt thicker at the same time. "Damn it, the commander's son is too good," said the knight, and Jiro noticed that he had morphed the armor his family used during the war. He wanted to claim it, but then remembered that he won't see combat for the rest of his days alive. "Not for me," said a young knight. Issei looked at him, and he looked about Issei's age and threw the daggers at him, then he threw the spear, and then readied his sword. Issei looked and saw an escape, but it was risky and he took it. The daggers he bounced using the poncho, and the spear he caught and dropped it. He picked up his gun loaded with practice rounds, and the knight's blade was by Issei's neck, while Issei's gun was at the knight's chest. "I believe I win," said the knight. "False, I win. The only thing faster than a bullet is light. Even if you struck me I could heal my cut throat, unlike the bullet that would implode your heart," said Issei. Both were a little tense, but then lowered their weapons and then laughed it off. "You're not too bad. That blitz attack kept me on the back foot. Your fellow knights could learn a thing or two from you," said Issei while he holstered his gun in a cross-draw position. "Yeah, they would," except he trailed off on what he was about to say and was interrupted by another knight. "The knight general is kind of discriminatory. He dislikes hybrids between devils and humans," said the captain. "Then I have an idea, that is if you would be fine with it. Come and be one of my rooks," said Issei. "I would love to, but you would have to negotiate that with the general and with our king," said the young knight. "By the way, my name is Ogi Moriakita," he said, and took off his glove to shake Issei's hand, and he did just that. "I think I will. Chances are I will probably get you by king's decree. Having half devils from birth isn't much of an issue really," said Issei, and he walked away, and he knew where he was heading next to get his rook. "General, give me the half-blood," said Issei. "No," the general said. "Why?" "I heard about your disdain for him and Hess skilled, so why not give him over if you hate him so much? After all, he would no longer be in your care and be in mine instead," said Issei. "He doesn't deserve to serve under a noble house. He is a hybrid," said the general. "All of the servants, or at least most of the peerages, are reincarnated humans. Their masters are likely all devils. Just let me handle it," said Issei. Eventually the general faltered and he handed ownership of Tibet Knight to Issei. He went back and let him know. The knight went back to his dorm and Issei did his magic, making Ogi his rook. Issei the next day Issei took Ogi with him to the real world, as his parents decided to live the rest of their life in the underworld. Issei stayed at the home that they had owned in the real world. He stayed in Kuo as he didn't know much about being a devil, besides having a peerage and being in existence, and he was put under the training of Sona, who had owned a territory for a while and had a proven track record. Ria's Gremory continued to reside over the shared territory, but had a backup plan for getting away from Riser, a plan which Sona did condone. I am going to check out these three a little more before I decide to bring them into my peerage, is that fine, Lady Sona? Ask Issei. It's fine, that's the type of thing we do as well, observe, but make sure that if supernatural harm is coming to them to intercept it before it can cause any damage. Said Sona. I will notify Ria's as well so she doesn't mess with them. Issei had brought Ogi to come to class, and as expected he was treated pretty well up on the surface. It quite literally formed a triumvirate of three princes in the school, Kiba the first, Issei the second and now Ogi the third. Even with his country-sounding accent the girls at the school seemed attached to him as well, but Issei made sure he didn't have too much contact with the perverted trio. He had no sacred gear, but he did have powers that made him near invulnerable as a rook, his skill with weaponry, and at the same time his ability to harden his body wherever he chooses, made him a good rook to have. Later Ogi, I'll see you back at my place. Said Issei, and Ogi waved while trying to dodge the groups of girls lingering inside the school premises, as well as clubs still being active. They walk back to Issei's house and on the way he spots Mitsuda and he is staring at someone. Issei grabs Caddis and he puts his back to the wall to watch what happens next. Look over there, Mitsuda. That's not the same. Said Issei, and Caddis seemed to notice it. He was still blushing like an idiot, but wasn't staring at the priestess like a pervert. He doesn't have the same aura as a human anymore. I sense a demonic presence like ourselves, but there is something else, something much older. Said Caddis. Good, your senses are sharp. Yes, he has definitely gone through a metamorphosis, probably thanks to Ria's Gremory. What you sense is a dragon. I have felt this only once before but much stronger than he is currently. Said Issei, remembering back to last night when he met Tannen. You are quite strong, young devil, however, you may beat me in strength but not wits. Issei remembered Tannen saying, and he frowned thinking about it, but then focusing on the moment at hand. He is probably one of Rias's peerage members, chances are she will take her in as well if need be. I'll have Kuroka keep an eye on any movement going in or out of the school. If she is trying to do it or they act on their own, I think it will be a good practice run for our peerage and a measure of combat skill. Let's go, I imagine he will be fine. Said Issei, and they continued walking and finally made it to the house and entered. Kuroka. You home? Asked Issei. Over here, Naya. Said Kuroka. Well, you're in a good mood, Kuroka. Did you find someone you like? Asked Issei. No, but I am happy to have seen my little sister. I thank you for that. How's clearing my name going? Asked Kuroka. Difficult. The father of the bastard that used to own you has a lot of pull. Even when the evidence was looking him straight in the face he didn't even refer nor consult the evidence he was given. Said Issei. However, since you are under my care and are one of my pieces, namely the queen, they cannot touch you since you have not shown hostile intent. Also, I am not the type of person to use you and experiment on you because I can. Morally that is not just wrong, but makes the person unethical. Said Issei. Oh well, I imagined it would be difficult so I can wait, even though I would like to have it immediately. I know thanks to your father and mother that the devil clans are quite the rabblesome bunch and tend to argue a lot. Said Kuroka. Yeah. Even mine and my father's return made quite a bit of noise, though they probably liked the idea of our return to the underworld, said Issei, but on the other hand, I can't tell you how many arranged marriage proposals I have been receiving, it's absurd, like everyone wants a piece of me. Issei said with a tinge of annoyance. He was annoyed, but he let it go and moved on. It seems like our red-haired demon ally is playing at something. I know Kaneko is probably watching him, so please do the same, but don't contact Kaneko unless absolutely necessary. I have an idea on how we can get her to forgive you, but for now please do this for me, as selfish as it is. Said Issei. I am the queen piece, but I can suppress my presence. I will watch him and see the progress. What happens if they get too close to the church on the hill? Asked Kuroka. Then don't pursue in a 50-yard radius of the church. It is possible that an angel or fallen presence may be there. Also, there has been no word from Rainier since that day when she asked me to turn her. If she is there, don't contact her or approach her unless she approaches you. If anyone tries to kill you, well, you know what to do. Said Issei. Kuroka smiled knowing what he meant and left, first in the form of a black cat and then camouflaging herself and moving quickly, Issei detecting her every movement until she was beyond sensible range. Now then, homework and then dinner. By then Ogi should return. Said Issei, but was quickly interrupted by a tapping on the window. Issei went over and it was no one other than Rainier. Something wrong, Rainier? You look pale. Said Issei as she grabbed the side of the building and slouched down, and he saw it. She was bleeding profusely, especially from the inside of her leg. Caddis. Bring me the medical kit. Yelled Issei, and he went outside with a paled look on his face and was surprised. Rainier, stay with me, don't pass out. Said Issei. She grabbed his hand and passed out, and looking above and a good distance away was another fallen angel in a trench coat. It must have been her betrayer. He drew his gun and said to his gun. May the darkness of the depths of the underworld be your new home, betrayer of allies. He fired a demonic round, and as the fallen turned and was escaping, it struck the fallen in the left side of their body. He had hit the fallen right in the heart, one shot to kill, and the fallen fell the rest of his way to the ground. "She's hurt bad," said Cadis, and Issei put his head to her chest. Normally he would be pretty aroused in a situation where he could put his head on a woman's chest, but this time was much different. "She's gone, no heartbeat," said Issei, and then he remembered her words. She probably wouldn't mind it if he brought her back, especially if she wanted revenge. "Stand back, I am going to bring her back," he said while pulling out a bishop piece and recited the incantation. It worked and he smiled. "Now Rainier, come back and get your revenge, not only as my peerage member, but as my combat bishop." She was revived and smiled and brought her hand to Issei's knee and then passed out again, but this time with a smile on her face. She seemed to be at peace, or almost at peace. But he knew she was going to go nuts tomorrow morning when she awoke. The next day, Issei laid there staring at Rainier. Again her face was at peace, and he was tempted to pat her on the head, but knew better than to awake someone who had just died. But then her eyes burst to life and opened. "What the? Where? How?" she said, exasperated. "You are at my home, Rainier. Welcome back to the world of the living," he said, also getting up. He had his clothes on to make sure to not give her the wrong idea when she woke up, but Cadis had stripped her naked, and Rainier was quite flustered when she discovered this. "So I died," she said, almost in a downtrodden mood. "Yes, I brought you back for a reason. That reason is to take revenge on your betrayers. You were backstabbed by another fallen, and he hit you in a critical point, right in the back. It missed your ribs thankfully, but punctured your lung. Your heart also stopped long enough to consider you clinically dead," said Issei. "Take revenge on them, and you will have your freedom, though you will no longer be a fallen angel as a consequence of your revival." She seemed to be surprised at this and contemplated the idea. "So why did you bring me back?" she asked. "Because I can tell that you wanted to pay them back. The one I shot, the one who did the dirty work and killed you, was shot down. I think I killed him, but I cannot be sure." "Are you angry at my actions?" Issei asked. "No, but thank you for bringing me back," Rainier said, covering herself, attempting to keep herself from being seen. "Can I contact my superior Azazel?" she asked. "Go ahead, I'll get out so you can get dressed, and I imagine you want to make this call in private. You know the form you used when you tried to pick me up?" asked Issei. "Hey. It wasn't like it was a booth call," Rainier said. "Oh, I know, I just say when you tried to pick me up, because you look like you were seriously trying to get me to fall for you, and honestly, you trying that hard was kind of cute," he said while walking out of the room and shutting the door behind him. This caused an atomic blush to appear on her face, even though Issei didn't know it. When she was done, she came out clothed and as an older version of Yuma Mono, though her camouflage she used as a fallen angel did still work, but the most that it camouflaged was her body. She couldn't replicate a uniform for Kuo Academy and had to borrow one of Cadis's sets of clothes. It fit her with some minor body modification, but the maximum she could modify herself wasn't enough to properly fit her chest size into the shirt. "Issei, I can't seem to fit into these clothes, and could you come here for a second?" Rainier said, and Issei approached, but she dragged him in and wanted to explain some things she was up to and why. She also confessed about what happened to the priestess, but then let him go, and so Issei had to cover it up until he could inform the proper channels. Just stay here for today, explore if you want, but be careful, we don't want to tip them off that you are still alive and kicking," said Issei. She agreed and sat down, trying to find something to do, and Issei and Ogi left the house and was joined by Cadis. Her gear had awakened that day before, and it ended up being a weapon he didn't expect, another dragon-based gear. It wasn't the white one, but a piece of another gear, another unknown gear. The gear of the water dragon Ryujin. It used a two-handed sword that evolved to a Cadis's liking, a katana with a red gem between the blade and the hilt. The sheath was also made of polished wood instead of a typical sword sheath. It was awakened when she felt a bit of rage at the sight of her boyfriend's ally being killed so easily and left to rot by the strange fallen angel. It drew the dragon out of her subconscious without needing much of a power-up. She even felt good when Issei landed that long-range shot with marksman-level accuracy. Ogi continued his training that he usually did in the woods, which was typically using his body like a wrecking ball and trying to destroy whatever he ran into. Kuroka did her usual, which after keeping an eye on Mitsuda for Issei and reporting it to him, tracking down her little sister and watching over her. But today was the day. Maybe he could ask Riaz if she would like to capture that bishop if they could, and today was the perfect day to do it. A day off was the perfect time to plan with no one getting in the way. The school grounds looked pretty much abandoned, but he knew the devils were inside the old schoolhouse. He hated to rat out someone like Mitsuda, since he knew what he was trying to do was something nice, but he had to notify her and at the same time propose a plan since it was her territory. Even the old abandoned church resided inside her territory, and it gave them a chance for a fully warranted strike, since he figured that the fallen here were working on their own, and if they were trying to be covert, they had seriously blown their own cover. Riaz, I know what I said might have been disheartening, but there is something that needs to be discussed urgently. I didn't go through Sona because she might make it more complicated. Said Issei. Then proceed, what did you want to say? Asked Rias. Did you awaken that dragon I saw the other day? I believe the student's name was Mitsuda, correct? I spotted him the other day and he went to the abandoned church thanks to one of my new peerage members who decided to defect to the devils. We know their plan. The priestess that was with him will die by tonight unless we act. I know I have no right to fight a battle, but I believe that priestess might be valuable to you in the future. Issei said. Then what do you get out of it? Rias asked sharply. Revenge. The one that defected was betrayed and died in my backyard trying get to me. Let her mop up the enemies below and take the priestess. You get what you want and I get what I want. Agreed. Issei asked. I will consult my brother about this. Do you believe you can trust the information given to you? Rias asked. Yes. If she were lying, the peace inside her would likely have killed her. Issei said, and she decided to step put to inform her brother of the developing situation inside of the territory of Kuo, and Akeno seemed to be quite nervous around Issei, but he couldn't figure out why. Akeno, was it? Why are you so nervous? Issei asked. Oh, no reason, but Riser is scheduled to come again soon. And having Mitsuda as one of our members may be pouring fuel on a fire. As much as I like to punish those who deserve it, we are in no condition capable of fighting them off in a raiding game of any scale. Said Akeno. I can lend some aid, but I might have to convince them. 3 have seen actual combat. Caddis has not, so she may still be a little green when it comes to warfare. However, I was thinking of giving up the searches on the people I was looking at. You may need them more than I will. Said Issei. Though she may have disappointed you, please consider lending us aid. Said Akeno. You don't need me to consider it. I know you will need help. Even with training you will not have enough might to stop Riser's peerage, especially because he is a veteran of the raiding games. So I am willing to lend help for that occasion. Said Issei. Rias came back in through the door and she seemed tense, but Issei decided that it made sense that she could be in such a way considering she had confirmed the existence of Fallen in her territory and the approaching final meeting with Riser before the choice was laid out before her to fight or roll over. We have permission to act, he said, to send you and your forces ahead as vanguard and clear the way. Said Rias. That's all well and good, however, I will need to have Mitsuda with me. I assume that the priestess will probably only trust him. Is there anyone specific I should be cautious about? Issei asked. Fried Selzen, said Kiba, who was just coming in. He ambushed Kaneko on one of her contracts. The aforementioned priestess was there as well. Mitsuda wanted to bring her along, but we had to leave her. Too many Fallen coming down on our location when we were there. Yeah, I am not going to tell Kuroka about that. That will most definitely set her off. Regardless, we know our plan. I will call my members here. Just don't freak out when Kuroka shows up. Said Issei, and Rias nodded, knowing that Kaneko won't be in unless she calls her, and Issei starts up a message and tells his peerage about what is going on. Rainier, who had practiced thanks to her time as a fallen angel, teleported there instantly. Kuroka did the same thing, and Ogi and Caddis came in the same circle, since they were training to hone their skills together. Once appearing, they all converged on Issei, who was sitting on the couch. For now we wait. I want to strike at night. I also want to see Mitsuda's resolve on how badly he wants to take care of that girl. Said Rias. Fine by me. After all, a day attack would probably be suicide and announcing to the whole world that the supernatural exists. Said Issei. The time flew by and finally the door flew open and a pissed off and wounded Mitsuda came through the door, who wanted to question why Issei was here but saved it for later. Kuroka, could you use your senjutsu and heal Mitsuda? We are going to need him later. Said Issei. He pleaded with Rias to go, and by now even Kaneko had shown up and was giving her sister a wide berth, since it still seemed to hurt her internally seeing her sister and knowing she was also nearby. So we are all here. I believe you wanted to say something, Mitsuda. Said Issei. Yeah, he explained what had happened and the priestess that was taken by the church. We can't go. Said Rias, and she shot a look at Issei which told him to wait, and he understood it. She's testing him, a voice said in Issei's mind, and Issei brushed it aside, knowing that hearing your own thoughts was delusional and ignored it. Acting without permission or evidence is against the rules set for fighting even in my own territory. Said Rias, and Issei exited the room with his own peerage, and Mitsuda was pretty much going on a full rant and ultimately ran out of the room, and Issei met up with him. She may not want to go, but I can. How about it? I know you have some disdain for me, but I would like to save her before she gets sacrificed, if you know what I mean. Said Issei, and Mitsuda nodded, and they went for the church as fast as they could, Issei and his peerage deploying their wings, and Issei grabbed Mitsuda by the waist and carried him there. The battle at that church that night was quite bloody, and Caddis and Mitsuda saw what it was like for them to witness death firsthand, Rainier going off like a bullet and striking those who betrayed her. Though she could no longer summon light spears, she was able to summon and conjure something else to fight with, shadows of darkness. She could summon weapons or projectiles and use them by hand to strike a target or launch them to hit a target, but it was definitely a massacre, and halfway through Ria's peerage showed itself and assisted in the attack. Kiba and Kaneko, as well as Kuroka, dealt with Fried as if he were nothing more than a mere foot soldier challenging a monster. This seemed to cause Kaneko to be a little more stiff with her attacks, and Kiba had to cover at some points because of it. Kuroka made sure to keep her attacks incoming, so Fried could not counter-attack when dodging. It ultimately made Fried retreat, and when Rainier was done, she was covered in blood, but she still had one more to deal with and a truckload of fallen priests to kill. The fight was simple and dealt with quickly, and they interrupted before her sacred gear too could be taken out. Asia. Mitsuda yelled and he launched himself toward her but was unable to break the chains. Issei broke off from the battle temporarily and shot a link of the chains making it fall apart, and Mitsuda caught Asia before she could hit the ground. So that's her name, Asia. There it was, that same damned voice. He maintained focus while dodging strikes from fallen priests and getting a shot in every once in a while, and he noticed something. The trench-coated figure, the one who he had shot, was escaping. He was still alive. Rainier. Your target is getting away. Get going. Issei yelled and she took off again and chased after the escaping fallen angel. Rainier's paw. Don't think you can get away so easily, Donaseek, you damn traitor. Said Rainier, and she had a quite sadistic smile on her face, but at the same time, Mitsuda was escaping with Asia and ran into them both, and during the scuffle between Mitsuda trying to escape and the two fighting, Asia was killed and Mitsuda was pissed off. Rainier was injured by a light spear and was immobilized. Without any reserve, Mitsuda was pissed off and his arm showed a sacred gear. It was starting to awaken. Wait, a twice critical alone won't be enough to kill a fallen angel. Rainier said, and Mitsuda ignored what she said and tried to hit Donaseek with his fists, but he kept backing away until two light spears he conjured went through Mitsuda's legs, temporarily immobilizing him, but he got back up. Wait, don't continue, you'll really die, Mitsuda, I am not kidding. Rainier pleaded, and Mitsuda responded in a pissed off mood. I don't care, and the heat I feel from those light spears and my need to get Asia back. I need to get her back. Said Mitsuda, and his gear suddenly shattered and yelled explosion. And it changed into a full gauntlet and started saying in a gruff voice, boost. And his wings finally showed and he punched Donaseek through the circular stained glass window in the church. He collapsed temporarily to his knees and got up, but was very shaky at the knees, and he went back to Asia's side. Issei and Ria's peerages had already gathered, and Ria spoke up while Kuroka dragged in the beaten fallen angel and dropped him in front of Issei. Do you want her back? Ria's asked, and Mitsuda was stunned temporarily. You can do that. He asked, and Ria's nodded. Mitsuda got out of the way and a kendo came with Ria's chesset and she grabbed a bishop piece for Asia and the incantation was recited again and her body easily accepted the piece without resistance and Asia came back to life but did the same as Rainier. When Issei revived her, she passed out. Now then to the subject of you. Issei said, looking at the fallen angel. You have betrayed one of your own, turned your back on her and tried to carry out a scheme evil enough to incite the wrath from those involved. Your punishment is death. Said Issei. While everything was going on after Kuroka dropped the wounded fallen angel, Donaseek, Kuroka went and healed Rainier with her senjutsu, and Rainier came up behind the downed fallen and grabbed him by the neck and broke it after Issei delivered what punishment was to come to the fallen angel. He deserved far worse, but I wouldn't complain. Said Issei, and Kiba carried Asia while Mitsuda collapsed to Jin, but this time he had reached his limit. He was tired. Do you need help or can you handle it? Asked Issei. I can take care of it from here. Kiba, take Asia back to the schoolhouse. I will be at Mitsuda's trying to repair his wounds. Said Rias, and Issei and his peerage left and went straight back to his house. Man, that guy can fight. But he needs to be careful. He's got a death wish if he isn't careful. Said Issei. Well, that's to be expected from someone who is green when it comes to fighting, said Ogi, but I do agree he needs some work. Rainier, you have been contemplating the entire time. Is something wrong? Asked Issei. No, I am just wondering what gave me away to them. I made sure that when I came to your home I wasn't followed, but Donaseek must have been watching me from a distance. Said Rainier, and they all sat down around the table in the house. Well, besides that, I have a question. Do you want your freedom from me? Or do you want to stay? If you stay, you have allies you can learn to truly trust, ones that will not backstab you in the back like Donaseek. And further beyond, we can find who ordered your betrayal if that is what happened, and we can also make you much stronger. The piece that I instilled within you and all of my peerage members are mutated pieces, so your powers can climb to heights much higher than the strength you have now. Would you stay? Asked Issei, and Rainier thought for a second and then said in a decisive tone. Yes. End of the here. So that's it for today's video, guys. Before you go, just like the video and share it with your friends. Bye.